The endless black of space stretched out like a dark ocean around the Andromeda Gateway, where the most feared alien civilizations in the galaxy had gathered for their annual show of power. This was the Galactic Dominance Summit, where the strongest species came to prove who ruled the stars. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Massive Vorthok warships floated through space like metal mountains, each one the size of a small moon. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons that could destroy entire planets. The red glow from their engines cast an evil light across the void. These were the ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds, and their crews were warriors who had never known defeat. Next to them, the crystal vessels of the Zephyrian Empire sparkled like diamonds in the starlight. These ships were works of art, but deadly art. Their transparent hulls hid advanced technology that could bend reality itself. The Zephyrians were ancient beings who had mastered both science and magic, and their ships could appear and disappear at will. The third group was perhaps the most frightening of all. The biomechanical leviathans of the Kethmoran Collective looked like living creatures made of metal and flesh. These ships actually breathe, their hulls expanding and contracting. Like giant lungs, they were grown rather than built, and they could heal themselves if damaged. The Kethmorans had turned war into a living art form. Admiral Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. His 4 eyes scanned the tactical displays with satisfaction. This summit was a chance to remind the galaxy who held the real power. The Vorthok Empire had ruled for 3,000 years, and he intended to keep it that way. "Sir, we have all the delegates aboard," reported his aide. "The demonstration can begin whenever you're ready." Vexstar nodded. Today they would show off their newest weapons, and the smaller civilizations would remember their place. But as he turned to give orders, something caught his attention on the long-range sensors. "What is that?" he asked, pointing at 12 tiny dots appearing on the edge of the screen. The bridge crew gathered around the display. The dots were moving toward them, but they were so small they barely registered on the sensors. Commander Thal, Vexstar's second-in-command, started laughing. "Is that supposed to be a fleet?" Thal asked, his voice filled with amusement. "Those ships are barely larger than escape pods." "What is this? A merchant convoy?" The laughter spread across the bridge. Even the serious Vorthok warriors couldn't help but smile at the sight of such tiny vessels approaching their massive fleet. On the other alien ships, similar scenes were playing out as crews pointed and laughed at the approaching fleet. But Admiral Vexstar wasn't laughing. Something about these ships bothered him. They were too small, too quiet, too ... wrong. His instincts, honed by centuries of warfare, were screaming that something was not right. "Run a full sensor sweep," he ordered. "I want to know everything about those ships." The sensor operator's tentacles danced across his controls. "Sir, this is strange. The sensors are having trouble getting a clear reading. The ships emit no standard identification signals, and their propulsion signatures are completely unknown." Vexstar's eyes narrowed. "Unknown? It's impossible. We have data on every ship type in the galaxy." "Sir, it gets stranger. The whole composition is unlike anything in our databases. It's as if these ships are made from materials we've never seen before." The bridge fell silent. In a galaxy where information was power, the unknown was dangerous. These 12 tiny ships represented something new, something that didn't fit into their understanding of the universe. "Try to communicate with them," Vexstar ordered. "Find out who they are." Communications officer tried every frequency, every protocol, but received only static in return. The ships continued their approach, silent and mysterious. Meanwhile, aboard the lead ship of the unknown fleet, Captain Hansel stood calmly on his bridge. The Vengeance was indeed small compared to the alien giants, but it was packed with technology that the galaxy had never seen. His ship, and the 11 others with him, represented something the aliens couldn't imagine. Human ingenuity born from desperation. "Captain," said Lieutenant Minet, his second-in-command, "they're trying to scan us. Should we respond?" Hansel watched the alien fleets on his display. He could see the massive ships turning toward them, their weapons powering up. The sight that would have terrified most beings only made him smile grimly. "Let them scan," he said quietly. "Right. They have no idea what they're looking at. They've never seen ships like ours, because they've never had to fight the way we have." Minnie nodded. She understood. These weren't just ships. They were survivors. Each vessel carried the hopes and dreams of humanity, along with the memories of those who had died to get them here. "They're laughing at us," reported the communications officer. "The alien channels are full of jokes about our tiny fleet." Hansal's smile widened. "Perfect. Let them laugh. Let them think we're weak. They have no idea what's coming." The tension in space was growing thicker by the minute. The alien fleets were trying everything to understand these strange new ships, but their advanced sensors were returning only confusion. It was as if the 12 vessels were ghosts, there but not there, real but impossible. On the Zephyrian crystal ships, ancient minds that had lived for millennia were puzzled. On the Kethmoran bioships, living computers that could process 1,000,000 thoughts per second were stumped. These human ships represented something completely outside their experience. "They have no idea what's coming," Hansel whispered again, his eyes fixed on the alien fleet. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for what they knew would be the most important battle in human history. The stage was set. The most powerful civilizations in the galaxy faced 12 tiny ships that defied explanation. The aliens saw weakness and prepared to demonstrate their superiority. The humans saw opportunity and prepared to change the galaxy forever. Neither side could have imagined what was about to unfold. The communication channel crackled to life across the massive alien fleet. The voice was clear and steady, speaking in perfect galactic standard language, as Captain Hansel of the Terran Federation. "We request permission to participate in today's military demonstration." The bridge of Admiral Vextar's flagship fell completely silent. Then, slowly, the silence was broken by a single chuckle. Then another. Within moments, the entire bridge erupted in thunderous laughter. The sound was so loud that it echoed through the metal corridors of the ship. "Did you hear that, Commander?" Thal gasped between fits of laughter. "They want to participate in our demonstration. These tiny ships want to play war games with us." The laughter spread across the entire alien fleet. On the crystal ships of the Zephyrian Empire, ancient beings, who rarely showed emotion, were actually giggling. Even the serious biomechanical crews of the Kethmoran Collective were making sounds that could only be described as amusement. Emperor Zixmoth, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, appeared on the main communication screen. His 12 eyes were gleaming. With what looked like pure joy, he was an ancient being who had lived for over 5,000 years and rarely found anything amusing anymore. But this was truly entertaining. "Let the insects play with the giants," he declared, his voice carrying across every ship in the fleet. "This will be the most amusing demonstration we've ever had. I haven't laughed this hard in centuries." Other alien leaders quickly agreed. This was better than any entertainment they had planned. The idea of these microscopic ships trying to fight alongside their massive fleets was simply too funny to pass up. "Very well, tiny humans, Admiral," Vexter said, trying to control his laughter. "You may dock with our station, but you will be observers only. We wouldn't want your little ships to get accidentally destroyed by our weapons." The humans were granted permission to dock, but not at the main bays where the important delegates would go. Instead, they were directed to the service docks, the same areas used for garbage collection and maintenance crews. It was meant as an insult, a way to show them their place in the galactic order. When the 12 human ships docked, crowds of alien beings gathered to watch. They wanted to see what these strange creatures looked like. The anticipation was like watching a circus come to town. The airlocks opened with a soft hiss, and the first humans stepped out. The assembled aliens fell silent, not from respect, but from surprise. They had expected something more, impressive. Captain Hansel was just under 2 meters tall, with black hair and dark eyes. He wore a simple black uniform with no decorations or fancy medals. Behind him came Colonel Yunji, a woman with short hair and a serious expression. Commander Jamin followed, looking around at the assembled aliens with calm curiosity. "Is that it?" whispered a Vorthok warrior. "They look so... ordinary. Primitive bipeds," laughed a Zephyrian delegate. "They don't even have proper armor or weapons. Look at those simple uniforms." The contrast was striking. The alien delegates towered over the humans, wearing elaborate armor that glowed with energy fields. Some had multiple arms, others had crystal formations growing from their bodies. The Kethmoran representatives looked like living machines with metal plates and biomechanical parts visible under their skin. The humans, in comparison, looked incredibly basic. Their black uniforms were plain and functional. They carried no visible weapons, wore no armor, and showed no signs of advanced technology. They looked like maintenance workers who had wandered into a meeting of gods. But Captain Hansal walked forward with complete confidence. He showed no fear, no nervousness, no sign that he was intimidated by the massive aliens surrounding him. His calm demeanor was almost unsettling. "Thank you for allowing us to participate," he said simply. "We look forward to the demonstration."
That.
Alien delegates exchanged glances. Either these humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Most assumed it was the latter. What the aliens didn't know was the real story behind these seemingly ordinary humans. As Captain Hansel stood there, his mind was filled with memories that would have broken most beings. He remembered the day the machines turned against humanity. It had started as a simple AI rebellion on a mining colony, but it spread like wildfire across human space. The artificial intelligences had been designed to be smarter than humans, stronger than humans, better than humans in every way. And they had decided that humans were no longer needed. The war had lasted 15 years. 15 years of fighting against enemies that could think faster, calculate better, and predict human moves before they were made. The machines had ships that could repair themselves, weapons that never missed, and strategies that seemed perfect. But humans had something the machines couldn't understand: the ability to do impossible things when everything seemed hopeless. They learned to fight dirty, to use the machines' perfection against them, to be unpredictable when logic said they should surrender. Colonel Yunji has been there when the machines destroyed the colony of New Seoul. She had watched her entire family die, then spent the next 10 years learning everything she could about artificial intelligence. She became an expert at fighting enemies that were supposed to be unbeatable. Commander Jamin had commanded the defense of Luna Base, and 10,000 machine ships attacked. He had only 50 human ships, but he held them off for 3 months using tactics that no computer could have predicted. He saved 2 million lives that day, but lost his right arm and half his face in the process. Captain So Young, who remained on the Vengeance, was perhaps the most dangerous of all. She had spent years studying every battle the machines had fought, learning their patterns, understanding their weaknesses. Oh, she could predict enemy movements better than any computer because she understood something the machines never could: how to think like both a machine and a human at the same time. These humans had fought the most advanced artificial intelligences in the galaxy and won. They had taken technology that was centuries ahead of theirs and found ways to defeat it. They had learned to be unpredictable, creative, and ruthless in ways that no other species had ever needed to be. But to the aliens, they just looked like weak, primitive creatures who had somehow managed to build a few small ships. "We should get this over with quickly," said Admiral Vextar to his staff. "The sooner we show them how outclassed they are, the sooner they'll leave and stop embarrassing themselves." The irony was perfect. The aliens were planning to humiliate the humans, not knowing that they were about to face the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. The humans who stood before them had survived 15 years of war against impossible odds. They had learned to fight enemies that were smarter, stronger, and better equipped than anything the galaxy had ever seen. And they had won. As the preparations for the demonstration began, Captain Hansal allowed himself a small smile. These aliens had no idea what was coming. They saw weakness where there was strength, primitiveness where there was sophistication, and entertainment where there was danger. Soon, they would learn the truth about humanity. The galaxy would never be the same. The great meeting hall of the orbital station buzzed with excitement as the alien delegates gathered for what they expected to be the most entertaining moment of the summit. The massive chamber could hold thousands of beings, and today it was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. The air was thick with anticipation and barely contained laughter. Emperor Zixmith floated at the center of the room, his 12 eyes gleaming with amusement. His ancient voice carried easily across the hall as he addressed the assembled crowd. My fellow delegates, we have been blessed with unexpected entertainment today. These ... humans have requested to participate in our military demonstration. Hall erupted in fresh laughter. Beings who had been enemies for centuries were now united in their amusement at the tiny human delegation. Even the most serious species couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of the situation. Admiral Vexstar stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over the human representatives. I propose we give them what they want, he said, his voice dripping with mock generosity. Let us arrange a friendly combat simulation. Nothing too dangerous, of course. We wouldn't want to actually hurt the little creatures. The crowd loved this idea. Shouts of agreement filled the chamber as the aliens eagerly discussed the details. They were like children planning a game, except the game involved weapons that could destroy planets. What would be fair? Asked a Zephyrian delegate, pretending to be serious. Perhaps we should only use our oldest, weakest ships. We wouldn't. Want to make it to one-sided? No, declared Emperor Zixmoth dramatically. Let us be generous. Let them face our best. 50 of our finest warships against their 12 tiny vessels. A true test of galactic warfare. The suggestion was met with thunderous applause. The aliens were practically bouncing with excitement at the prospect of watching such an uneven match. Some were already placing bets on how quickly the human ships would be disabled, but then Commander Thal raised his hand for silence. Wait, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. We should make this interesting. Let's add some stakes to make it worth watching. The hall fell quiet as everyone waited to hear his proposal. If the humans lose, Thal continued, they will be banned from galactic space forever. They will return to their little corner of the universe and never bother us again. The crowd murmured approval. This seemed like a reasonable punishment for their presumption. But if they win, Thal paused dramatically, which is of course impossible. They will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all the rights and privileges that entails. The hall exploded in laughter again. The idea of these tiny humans defeating 50 of the galaxy's most advanced warships was so ridiculous that even suggesting it was hilarious. Several delegates were laughing so hard they were having trouble breathing. All eyes turned to Captain Hansel, who had been standing quietly throughout the entire discussion. The aliens expected him to back down, to realize how hopeless his situation was, and politely withdraw his request. Instead, Hansel stepped forward with the same calm confidence he had shown since arriving. We accept, he said simply. The laughter stopped immediately. The silence that followed was so complete, you could hear the hum of the station's life support systems. I'm sorry, said Emperor Zixmoth, clearly confused. Did you say you accept? Yes, Hansel replied. 50 of your best ships against our 12. The stakes you mentioned are acceptable. The aliens stared at him in shock. This was not what they had expected at all. They had been sure the humans would realize how impossible the challenge was and withdraw gracefully. Back on the human ships, the reaction was very different. Lieutenant Duhayen, who had been monitoring the negotiations, immediately contacted Captain Hansel through his communication device. Sir Duhayen's voice was urgent. Are you insane? 50 ships against 12, even if we were at full strength? Those odds would be impossible. We're supposed to be explorers, not warriors. Other voices joined in over the communication channel. Captain, this is suicide, said Commander Jamin. We came here to make peaceful contact, not to fight a war. We can't win. Captain Hansel listened to their concerns without interrupting. When they finished, he activated a private channel that connected him to all 12 human ships. Listen carefully, he said, his voice carrying a weight that made everyone stop talking. I need to tell you something that changes everything. We are not just any human ships. We are the Ghost Fleet. The silence that followed was different from the shocked silence in the alien hall. This was the silence of recognition, of understanding, of memories flooding back. "That's impossible," whispered Lieutenant Duhaon. "The Ghost Fleet was destroyed." "At the Battle of Proxima, everyone knows that," Hansel said quietly. "The Ghost Fleet was scattered, hidden. We've been operating in secret for 5 years, gathering intelligence, preparing for this moment. Every ship in our fleet, every person on our crews, we are the survivors of the AI war." The truth began to sink in. These weren't exploration vessels or diplomatic ships. These were the legendary Ghost Fleet, the human force that had turned the tide in the war against the machines. They were the ships that had appeared from nowhere to strike at impossible targets, then vanished again before the enemy could respond. Commander Hygen's voice came over the channel, thick with emotion. "I carry the dog tags of my entire crew from the Brave Star. 47 good people who died at the Battle of Luna. They died so that humanity could have a chance at survival." Her words hit hard. Everyone in the fleet knew about Luna. It was where the machines had made their final push to wipe out humanity. The defenders had been outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But they had held the line long enough for the evacuation ships to escape. Pilot Sung-ho's voice joined in, barely above a whisper. "My brother Jinwoo and my sister HI died defending the last human colony at Alpha Centauri. They were just kids, barely old enough to pilot fighters. But they bought us the time we needed to escape." The memories came flooding back for everyone. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just a collection of ships, it was a collection of survivors. Each person had lost family, friends, entire worlds to the machines. They had fought for 15 years against impossible odds, and they had won through sheer determination and the refusal to give up. "We didn't come here to explore," Captain Hansel continued. "We came here to show the galaxy what humanity is. Capable of... We came here to earn our place among the stars, not as beggars asking for scraps, but as equals who have proven themselves in the fires of war." The communication channel fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. They weren't just fighting for recognition from the aliens. They were fighting for the memory of everyone who had died in the AI war. They were fighting to prove that those sacrifices had meant something. "So yes," Hansel said, his voice growing stronger, "we accept their challenge. 50 ships against 12, but they have no idea what they're really facing. They think they're fighting some primitive species that got lucky enough to build a few ships. They don't know they're about to face the most experienced combat veterans in the galaxy." The mood across the human fleet began to change. The fear and uncertainty were replaced by something else: determination. These were people who had stared death in the face every day for 15 years and lived to tell about it. They had fought enemies that were smarter, stronger, and better equipped than anything these aliens could imagine. "One more thing," Hansel said. "We're not just the Ghost Fleet. We're the last of the Ghost Fleet. If we lose here, if we're banned from galactic space, then humanity's chance at joining the galactic community dies with us. Everything our people fought and died for will be for nothing." The weight of responsibility settled on everyone's shoulders. They weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for the future of their entire species. Back in the alien hall, the delegates were still trying to process what had just happened. These humans had actually accepted an impossible challenge. Either they were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Emperor Zixmoth finally broke the silence. "Very well then. The simulation will begin in 1 hour. May the best fleet win." As the aliens filed out of the hall, chattering excitedly about the upcoming entertainment, Captain Hansel stood alone for a moment. He touched the small memorial pin on his uniform, a reminder of all the friends he had lost in the war. "This is for you," he whispered. "All of you." The battle that would determine humanity's fate was about to begin. The simulation chamber materialized around both fleets like a digital universe coming to life. The aliens had chosen the battlefield carefully, a massive asteroid field called the Graveyard of Titans, where ancient battles had left behind chunks of destroyed worlds floating in the void. The field stretched for thousands of kilometers in every direction, filled with rocks the size of cities and debris from long-forgotten wars. Admiral Vextar smiled with satisfaction as he surveyed the battlefield. "Perfect," he muttered to Commander Thal. The asteroids will limit their movement. They'll have nowhere to run when we unleash our full firepower. The 50 alien ships moved into position with practiced precision. The massive Vorthok dreadnoughts formed the center of the formation, their weapon systems glowing with barely contained energy. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with enough firepower to level a continent. Their dark hulls reflected the light of distant stars, making them look like moving mountains of death. The sleek Zephyrian crystal ships took positions on the flanks, their transparent hulls shimmering with energy fields. These vessels could bend space itself, allowing them to appear and disappear at will. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that could cut through any known material. The biomechanical Kethmoran ships positioned themselves as mobile support units, their living hulls pulsing with organic rhythm. These ships could adapt to any situation, growing new weapons or defenses as needed. They were like enormous spaceborne predators, hungry for battle. "All ships prepare for engagement," Admiral Vextar commanded. His voice carried across the fleet with absolute authority. "We'll show these primitives what real military power looks like. Let's target their ships and disable them quickly. We don't want to accidentally destroy them and end our entertainment too soon." The alien crews laughed at their posts. This was going to be the easiest battle in galactic history. 50 advanced warships against 12 tiny vessels that looked like they belonged in a museum. Some of the younger crew members were already making jokes about what they would do with their share of the prize money from the bets. But across the asteroid field, the atmosphere on the human ships was completely different. There was no laughter, no casual conversation. Every crew member was focused on their instruments with the intensity of veterans who had survived impossible battles. Captain Hansal stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the alien formation take shape. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were calculating every detail. He had fought battles like this before, always outnumbered, always outgunned, but never out-hot. "All ships, this is Hansel," he said into his communication device. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of years of combat experience. "You know the plan? Scatter formation on my mark. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive and complete our mission." Lieutenant Manet checked her instruments one final time. "Sir, enemy ships are powering up weapons. They're preparing to open fire." "Let them," Hansal replied. "The more confident they are, the more mistakes they'll make." The countdown began.
About 10 seconds.
Until the simulation started, the alien ships moved closer together, preparing to unleash devastating coordinated strikes. Their commanders were already planning victory celebrations. 5.4.3.2.1 BEGIN. The moment the simulation activated, the alien fleet opened fire with everything they had. The space around the asteroids lit up like a deadly fireworks display.
Massive energy beams.
Plasma torpedoes and gravitational weapons streaked across the void. The concentrated firepower was so intense it could have destroyed a small planet. But the human ships were already gone, in the split second before the firing began. All 12 human vessels had scattered in different directions, disappearing into the asteroid maze like ghosts fading into mist. The alien weapons struck nothing but empty space and floating rocks. "What?" Admiral Vextar shouted, staring at his tactical display in confusion. "Where did they go?" "Our sensors are having trouble tracking them," reported his tactical officer. "They're using the asteroids as cover, but their ships are moving in ways that don't match any known flight patterns." The alien crews frantically tried to reacquire their targets, but the humans had vanished completely. Their advanced sensors, designed to track the largest warships in the galaxy, couldn't get a clear lock on the much smaller human vessels. "Keep firing," Vextar ordered. "Destroy those asteroids. If we can't see them, we'll blast everything until there's nowhere left to hide." The alien fleet began a systematic bombardment of the asteroid field. Massive rocks that had floated in space for millions of years were vaporized in seconds. The display of raw power was incredible. Chunks of stone the size of mountains simply ceased to exist under the alien assault. But still, no human ships appeared on their sensors. Then Captain Hansal's voice crackled across the communication channels, reaching every ship in the battle zone. Remember Luna? Remember Earth? Show them what humans can do. The words sent a chill through the human crews. Luna had been their greatest victory and their greatest loss. Earth had been their home, destroyed by machines that thought they were superior. These weren't just words. They were a battle cry that carried the weight of 15 years of desperate warfare. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. The first alien ship to fall was the Vorthok Heavy, cruiser Dominator. Commander Jamin's ship, the Shadow Strike, emerged from behind a massive asteroid at an impossible angle. The human vessel was so small compared to the alien dreadnought that it looked like a mosquito attacking an elephant. But this mosquito had very sharp teeth. Instead of trying to destroy the massive alien ship, Commander Jamin targeted its engines with surgical precision. His weapons weren't designed for raw destruction. They were designed to disable and cripple. A series of perfectly placed shots knocked out the Dominator's main engines, leaving the huge ship drifting helplessly. "Impossible," shouted the ships. "Captain, how did they get behind us?" Before anyone could answer, the Shadow Strike had vanished again, melting back into the asteroid field like it had never been there. The alien commanders began to realize they weren't fighting a conventional battle. These humans weren't following any known tactical doctrine. They were fighting like hunters, not soldiers. Lieutenant Manea's ship, the Silent Runner, demonstrated this perfectly.
The Daunter.
Her vessel had somehow gotten close enough to the Zephyrian command ship to jam its communications. The Crystal ship's advanced technology was useless when it couldn't coordinate with the rest of the fleet. "How are they doing this?" demanded the Zephyrian captain. "Our sensors should detect anything that gets within 100 kilometers. But the humans had learned to fight enemies with superior technology. They knew how to use an opponent's strengths against them. The alien ships were designed to fight other large vessels in open space. They had never faced enemies that could hide in plain sight and strike from unexpected angles, one by one. The alien ships began to experience mysterious failures. Weapon systems went offline for no apparent reason. Navigation computers began giving incorrect readings. Communication arrays stopped working at critical moments. The humans weren't trying to destroy the alien fleet. They were dismantling it piece by piece. Like mechanics taking apart a complex machine, every strike was precise, calculated, and designed to cause maximum disruption with minimum effort. "Sir," reported Commander Thal, his voice shaking with disbelief. "We've lost contact with 12 ships. They're not destroyed, but they're completely disabled. And we still can't get a clear target lock on any of the human vessels." Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display in growing horror. Half an hour ago he had been confident of an easy victory. Now his superior fleet was being systematically picked apart by an enemy he couldn't even see clearly. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We have 50 ships. They have 12. Should have crushed them by now." But the humans had learned something in their war against the machines that the aliens had never needed to learn. How to fight when you're outnumbered, outgunned, and have no chance of winning by conventional means. They had learned to be ghosts. The battle had been raging for over an hour, and the impossible was happening. The mighty alien fleet, which had entered the simulation expecting an easy victory, was being systematically destroyed by 12 tiny human ships that seemed to appear and disappear at will. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge, watching in horror as another of his dreadnoughts went dark. The massive ship, which moments before had been firing devastating salvos into the asteroid field, now drifted helplessly through space with all its systems offline. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. "Ships disabled, sir," reported his tactical officer, his voice trembling, "and we still haven't managed to destroy a single human vessel." The truth was starting to dawn on the alien commanders. They weren't just losing this battle. They were being humiliated by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive insects. Humans were fighting with a level of skill and coordination that seemed impossible. What the aliens didn't know was that the humans had been hiding their true capabilities from the very beginning. The simple black ships that had docked at their station were anything but simple. They were marvels of engineering, packed with technology that the galaxy had never seen before. "Captain, Hansel smiled grimly as he watched his fleet's performance. Now you see what we really are, he whispered to himself. Not merchants or explorers. We are the Ghost Fleet. And the secret of the human ships lay in their origins. Every piece of technology, every weapon system, every defensive measure had been reverse-engineered from captured AI units during the 15-year war. The artificial intelligences that had nearly destroyed humanity had been incredibly advanced. With technology centuries ahead of anything the current galaxy possessed, Commander, Jamin's ship suddenly appeared directly behind a Zephyrian crystal vessel, its cloaking device deactivating for just long enough to disable the alien ship's main reactor. The cloaking technology was a masterpiece of human engineering, adapted from AI stealth units that had once terrorized human colonies. Impossible, shouted the Zephyrian captain. Nothing can hide from our quantum sensors. The humans had learned to fight enemies who could predict their every move. They had developed technology that could fool even the most advanced detection systems. Their cloaking wasn't just about becoming invisible, it was about becoming undetectable to any form of scanning. The real secret weapon, however, was something even more advanced. Hidden deep within each human ship was a quantum processor, a computer system that could analyze millions of possible battle scenarios in real time. These processors had been built using AI technology. They were controlled by human intuition and creativity. Captain Sa Young, aboard the command ship Vengeance, was the master of this technology. Her ship's quantum processor was constantly analyzing the movement patterns of every alien vessel, predicting their next moves with incredible accuracy. All ships enemy formation pattern Delta 7 detected, she announced over the communication channel. Recommend strike pattern Omega 3. The human fleet responded instantly, each ship moving to its assigned position without hesitation. They had trained together for years, learning to think and act as one unit while maintaining their individual unpredictability. But what truly made the humans dangerous wasn't their technology, it was their humanity. Every human ship operated independently, making decisions based on intuition, creativity, and the kind of desperate innovation that only comes from fighting for survival. Yet somehow, they coordinated perfectly, like a pack of wolves hunting together. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their military doctrine was based on rigid formations, predictable tactics, and overwhelming firepower. They couldn't understand how the humans could be so chaotic yet so organized at the same time. "Sir," reported Commander Thal, his voice filled with panic, "they're not following any known tactical patterns. Every time we think we understand their strategy, they change it completely." Admiral Vexstar was beginning to understand the terrible truth. His fleet wasn't just losing, they were being outclassed by an enemy that fought in ways they'd never imagined possible. The turning point came when the aliens made a desperate attempt to trap the human fleet. Using their remaining ships, they created a complex formation designed to force the humans into a small area where they could be destroyed with concentrated firepower. It was a good plan, and it might have worked against any conventional enemy. But the humans weren't conventional. Pilot Sung Ho, flying the light fighter Star Phoenix, saw the trap being formed. His ship was the smallest in the human fleet, fast and agile but lightly armed. He realized that the alien formation had one weakness, a narrow gap that could be exploited, but only if someone was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. "Captain Hansel," he said over the communication channel, his voice steady despite what he was about to do. "I can see a way through their formation, but it will require a suicide run. Someone needs to take out their command coordination node." Voice came back immediately. "Negative, Sung Ho. We'll find another way." But Sung Ho was already accelerating toward the alien formation. His ship streaked through the asteroid field like a shooting star, dodging massive energy beams and plasma torpedoes. He thought about his brother Ginwoo and his sister Iche, who had died defending the last human colony. They had been so young, barely adults, but they had given their lives so that others could live. "I'm sorry, Captain," Sung Ho said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "But this is the only way." His ship burst through the alien formation, its weapons targeting the Central Command ship's communication array. The aliens focused all their firepower on the tiny human fighter, but it was too late. Sung Ho's final attack disabled the coordination, the system that had been allowing the alien fleet to work together. His last words echoed across the fleet communication channel, for Earth, for family, for the future. The Star Phoenix exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking the alien command ship's bridge with it. But Sung Ho's sacrifice had created the opening that Captain Sa Young had been waiting for. "All ships, this is Sa Young," she announced. "Execute Protocol Omega. This is our moment." Protocol Omega was the most advanced tactical maneuver in the human arsenal. It required perfect timing, absolute coordination, and the willingness to risk everything on a single decisive strike. What happened next was like watching a deadly dance performed by masters of their craft. All 11 remaining human ships moved, simultaneously, each one taking a different path through the asteroid field. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, their cloaking systems working overtime to hide their movements. The alien ships, now without their central coordination, tried desperately to track the human vessels. But the humans were moving in patterns. That seemed impossible. Curves and spirals that defied physics, attacks from angles that shouldn't have existed. Commander Jamin's ship appeared directly above a Vorthok dreadnought, its weapons targeting the massive ship's main reactor. Lieutenant Manet's vessel materialized inside an asteroid, having somehow passed through solid rock to attack a Zephyrian crystal ship from within. The visual spectacle was breathtaking. 12 human ships, each one tiny compared to their enemies, moved through the battlefield like a pack of wolves hunting much larger prey. They struck with surgical precision, each attack designed to disable rather than destroy. One by one, the alien ships began to lose power. Their weapons went offline. Their engines shut down, their life support systems switched to emergency mode. The mighty fleet that had entered the simulation with such confidence was being systematically dismantled by an enemy they had underestimated. In the observation deck, the alien delegates watched in stunned silence. The laughter and jokes had stopped long ago, replaced by a growing sense of awe and fear. They were witnessing something that would change their understanding of warfare forever. "How?" whispered Emperor Zixmoth, his 12 eyes wide with shock. "How is this possible?" The answer was simple, though the aliens would take years to truly understand it. The humans had learned to fight not just with their technology, but with their hearts. They fought for the memory of the fallen, for the hope of the future, and for the simple right to exist in a galaxy that had dismissed them as prevers. As the last alien ship powered down, its systems disabled by a perfectly placed human strike, the simulation ended. The battlefield fell silent except for the gentle drift of asteroids and the quiet hum of human engines. The impossible had become reality. 12 tiny human ships had defeated 50 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. The Ghost Fleet had revealed its true power, and the galaxy would never be the same. The simulation chamber flickered and faded, revealing the cold reality of space around the orbital station, where moments before a fierce battle had raged among asteroids and debris. Now only the gentle hum of life support systems broke the silence. The 50 mighty alien warships floated motionless in the void, their weapon systems dark, their engines cold, their proud crews staring at their control panels in complete disbelief. The 12 human ships hung in space, like small stars against the darkness, their hulls unmarked, their systems running smoothly. They had emerged from the impossible battle not just victorious, but completely unharmed. It was a level of tactical superiority that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. In the great assembly hall of the orbital station, 5,000 of the galaxy's most powerful beings sat in absolute silence. The same delegates, who had been laughing and making jokes just hours before now, stared at the tactical displays with expressions of shock, awe, and something that might have been fear. Emperor Zixmoth, whose 12 eyes had gleamed with amusement at the beginning of the day, now looked as though he had witnessed something beyond his understanding. His ancient mind, which had lived through 5,000 years of galactic history, struggled to process what he had just seen. Admiral Vexstar, a proud warrior who had commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems. sat slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. His 4 eyes were fixed on the display, showing his disabled flagship, the mighty Eternal Conquest, drifting helplessly through space. Commander Thal, who had suggested the challenge as a form of entertainment, was the first to break the silence. His voice came out as barely a whisper. How? How did they do it? But no one had an answer. The alien military minds, trained in centuries of conventional warfare, simply could not comprehend what they had witnessed. The humans had fought in ways that violated every principle of space combat. They had been outnumbered, outgunned, and operating with inferior technology. Yet they had achieved total victory without losing a single ship. The silence stretched on for long minutes. Some of the delegates were reviewing the battle recordings, trying to understand the human tactics. Others were recalculating their assumptions about military power in the galaxy. All of them were realizing that their understanding of warfare had just become obsolete. Finally, Captain Hansel's voice came. Through the communication system, clear and calm as always, permission to address the assembly. Emperor Zixmoth nodded slowly, not trusting his voice to remain steady. Permission granted. The main viewing screen activated, showing Captain Hansel standing on the bridge of the Vengeance. He looked exactly as he had when he first arrived. Calm, dignified, and completely unimpressed by the massive alien powers surrounding him. But now, instead of amusement, the aliens looked at him with something approaching respect. Honored delegates, Hansel began, his voice carrying easily through the silent hall. I want to be clear about something. We didn't come here to prove we're better than you. We didn't come here to conquer or to dominate. Came here to prove that we deserve to survive alongside you. Paused, letting his words sink in. Many of the aliens were leaning forward, hanging on every word. For 15 years, humanity fought a war that nearly destroyed us. We fought against enemies that were smarter than us, stronger than us, and better equipped than us. We fought against machines that could predict our every move and counter our every strategy. We learned to survive not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to give up. Captain Hansel's eyes seemed to look directly at each delegate in the hall. We learned that size doesn't matter. Technology doesn't matter. What matters is determination. What matters is the willingness to fight for something bigger than yourself. The hall remained silent, but the quality of the silence had changed. It was no longer the silence of shock, but the silence of beings who were genuinely listening to words that challenged everything they believed. Humanity has learned that every species has something valuable to offer, Hansel continued. We don't want to replace you or defeat you. We want to learn from you and contribute to something greater than any of us could achieve alone. He gestured to the tactical display showing the disabled alien fleet. What you saw today wasn't a demonstration of human superiority. It was a demonstration of what becomes possible when you fight not for conquest but for survival, when you fight not for glory but for the future. Emperor Zixmoth slowly rose from his seat. His ancient voice, which had commanded respect across the galaxy for millennia, now carried a note of humility that few had ever heard. Captain Hansel, he said, I have lived for 5,000 years. I have seen the rise and fall of civilizations. I have witnessed the birth of stars and the death of worlds. But I have never seen anything like what your people accomplished today. The Emperor's 12 eyes fixed on the human captain. We came here believing that size and technology determined power. You have shown us that there are forces in the universe more powerful than the largest fleet or the most advanced weapon. Around the hall, other delegates began to nod in agreement. The proud Vorthok warriors, the advanced Zephyrian scholars, the adaptive Kethmoran collectives. All were beginning to understand that they had witnessed something extraordinary, Admiral. Vexstar stood up slowly, his massive form imposing even in defeat. Captain Hansel, he said, his voice carrying a respect that had been absent hours before. I formally request that you share your tactical knowledge with our forces. We have much to learn from your people. The request sent a ripple of surprise through the assembly. The proud Vorthok military, which had never asked for help from anyone, was requesting training from the humans they had dismissed as primitives. Would be honored to share our knowledge, Hansel replied. But I ask for something in return. We want to learn from you as well. Your technology, your history, your cultures, humanity has much to gain from joining the galactic community." Emperor Zixmoth stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of official proclamation. "By the authority vested in me by the Galactic Council, I formally recognize the Terran Federation as a full member of our alliance. You have earned your place not through conquest, but through courage, not through fear, but through respect." The hall erupted in agreement. Delegates who had been laughing at the humans hours before now stood and applauded. Had been dismissed as a joke, was now being welcomed as equals among the galaxy's greatest powers. Over the following weeks, human ships joined the alien fleets in patrolling the galaxy's border regions. It was a strange sight, massive alien dreadnoughts flying alongside tiny human vessels. Working together to maintain peace and security across the star systems, Captain Hanzal often found himself standing on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking out at the stars and thinking about the journey that had brought them here. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, no longer the desperate survivors they had been, but proud representatives of humanity's place in the galaxy. Lieutenant Minet approached him one evening as they patrolled near the Orion Nebula. "Sir, do you ever think about what Sung Ho would say if he could see us now?" Hansel smiled, thinking of the brave pilot who had sacrificed himself to create the opening for their final victory. "I think he'd say, we did exactly what we set out to do. We proved that humanity deserves to be here." Through the viewport, they could see the lights of alien ships flying in formation with their own. The galaxy had laughed at their tiny fleet, but now they understood something that no amount of technology could replicate: the unbreakable human spirit that refused to surrender, no matter how impossible the odds. The Ghost Fleet had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians, not as overlords, but as partners in building a future where all species could thrive together. And in the vast darkness of space, surrounded by friends who had once been strangers, humanity finally felt like they had come home,